Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. This is exam review 2 for uh, Bio 141 Fall 2020 class. Exam 2, I'll post it probably on today's Monday. Right now it's Monday 9 p.m. I'll probably post it tomorrow morning. It's going to be in a few hours. I'm going to post it on Tuesday, but you'll have plenty of time to take it. So have your pencils ready, have a piece of paper or your notepad ready, and take notes as I tell you which sections and which pages that you have to refer to for each question. And once you finish the video and you have taken all your notes and have all the pages and the sections, go back and study those sections and be ready for the exam. And you don't have to necessarily take it tomorrow. You can take it, you have until next Wednesday to take it. Next Wednesday at 12 a.m. is the deadline, basically. 11:59 next Wednesday. So take your time. You don't have to take it tomorrow. Study, watch this video. It is a 50 question exam. 10 questions from muscular system, 10 questions from skeletal, and the rest are from the nervous system. They're all multiple choice. Last time we had an issue with the timing of the exam. I'm gonna allow you more time on this exam, around 50 questions. I don't remember how much I gave you last time, but I'm thinking about 200, 250 minutes probably would do it. I haven't decided on that yet, but I'll make sure to give you plenty of time. You would only be allowed to take it one time. Once you open the exam, you have to take it and you have to finish it. You can't go back to it. And once you submit it, you'll be able to see all the correct answers. So if your internet goes down and you submit it, try. Then we have to give you another exam to make up for it, because if you accidentally submit it and not answer all the questions, then you would be able to see the correct answer for all the questions. Let's say you answer the first 10 questions, something happens, you run out of time, you submit it, and then you need to retake it again. But if I allow you to retake it, then you have all the answers to all 50 questions. So in that case, what I might do is uh, hide the correct answers until Wednesday, when the deadline has reached, and then you'll be able to see your correct answers. So let's say you take the exam on Thursday and you submit it, and out of 130 you get 100, and you see the questions that you got wrong and you want to know the correct answer, but you won't be able to see it until next Wednesday when everyone has taken the exam. And that's again because if something happens with someone and they lose internet connection, they accidentally submit the exam, I don't want anyone to be able to see the answers immediately when they submit it. So that's why what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna hide the correct answers after you submit until everyone else submits the exam, probably Wednesday, when you can actually see the correct answers. Of course, if it's really a burning question and you want to know the correct answer and you have missed a question and you think your answer was correct, absolutely, definitely email me and ask me what the correct answer was. Or if you want to argue a question or explain a question why you got it wrong, definitely email me, giving your explanation, and then I will consider it, read it, and if appropriate, I will give you partial credit for that question as to your explanation and why you think your answer was correct. But that usually doesn't happen very often because the questions, I try to make them very clear and straightforward. So let's talking and let's get to the questions, because there are 50 of them. So basically, we're going to start out with the muscle. And the first question is the basic structure of the skeletal muscle system. What I need you to do right now is pull up the documents for that week of the muscular system. Pull up the lecture reading notes, lecture supplemental notes, and text reading for muscular system. Okay, the first question is about actin and myosin. I want you to know which one is the thick filament, which one is the thin filament, and which one has a cross bridge. I would refer you to page 2 of muscular system supplemental notes, right in the analogy section. Has a good explanation, has the answer right there. And if you look at the PowerPoint on the muscular physiology, open up the PowerPoint on muscular physiology and go to slide number 20. You should be able to see the question. Also, for that question that asks about actin and myosin, I would also refer you to page 197 of muscular system text reading, the first paragraph. Page 197 of muscular system text reading, paragraph 1. Okay, second question. Second question basically is asking about what activates cross bridging, or what activates the cross bridge cycle in muscle contraction. And I would refer you to the text for this question. Muscular system text reading, page 196, and look at the thick and thin filament section, and you will find the answer. What activates cross bridging? Is it sodium? Is it potassium? Is it calcium? Is it iron? And so if you go to page 196 of muscular system text reading, you should be able to get the answer to that question. Or you can also look at the muscular physiology PowerPoint, slide number 14. Next question is about the contraction cycle. It's about the muscle contraction cycle. I would refer you to page 6 of muscular system supplemental notes. Page 6 of muscular system supplemental notes. And number 3. Number 3, when it talks about detachment. So in order for it to get detached, what needs to happen? And also, if that's not enough for you, I would also refer you to page 200 of muscular system text reading. And I want you to, when you're on page 200 of the muscular system text, read the clinical note box on the bottom left, where it said it's about the rigor mortis. It's a box on the lower left side that is titled rigor mortis. It says what happens when muscles run out of ATP, and that's basically what the question is. What happens when the muscle runs out of ATP? So for that question, as I said, page 6 of muscular system supplemental notes, number 3, where it talks about detachment, and page 200 of muscular system text reading, read the clinical note box all the way down on lower left hand side, that's titled rigor mortis. Okay, next question. Next question asks about sources of energy for muscle contraction, sources of ATP, which is very important. I'm not going to go into details of asking you about each type and how they work That's not the purpose of the class. I just want you to be familiar with the sources of energy for muscle contraction or sources of ATP. For that, I would refer you to page 8 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes. And on that page, the 4 sources are listed. However, on the exam, when you're taking the exam, there might be different wording, which would mean the same. For example, fermentation is same as anaerobic glycolysis. So if you see anaerobic glycolysis and you don't see it on the list, and you see fermentation, don't think, oh, fermentation is not there, so that's not going to be an answer. Or fermentation is there, and I don't see fermentation on one of the choices, so that's incorrect. Whereas if you read the description, you would understand that fermentation is actually also referred to as anaerobic glycolysis. A better reference to this question, or for this question, is the Muscular Physiology PowerPoint. If you open that up and go to a slide 23, read from a slide 23 all the way to 27. That would give you a better understanding on how to answer the question correctly. So Muscular Physiology PowerPoint, slide 23 to 27. Next one is basically the time that is allowed for muscle contraction from each type or each source of energy that's provided. And you will find that actually on page 8 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes. On page 8 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes, underneath each source of energy, you will see a paragraph, or you will see a line that says time allowed for muscle contraction, 20 to 30 minutes, 1 hour or more. Depending on the source of ATP and how it's generated, they all allow for a certain time of contraction only. So that's the question. And again, that's on page 8 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes. Next question is simply about gastrocnemius. Gastrocnemius. I want you to know its origin, and I want you to know its shape. For that, I would refer you to page 20 of Muscular System Lecture Notes, table 8.15. So it's about gastrocnemius, page 20 of Muscular System Lecture Notes, table 8.15 or 8.15. Also, you can see it over at the same answer about gastrocnemius, origin and shape is also mentioned on page 21 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes. When you look at page 21 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes, it's an image. I want you to look at the right image where it shows the posterior view of the right leg, posterior view of the right leg. And what I want you to observe is that gastrocnemius actually has 2 heads. So that's very important to know about gastrocnemius. So when you are referring to these 2 sections that I told you, when you go to page 20 of Muscular System Lecture Notes and looking at table 8.15, and you go down and you find gastrocnemius, write down the explanation, the origin, the shape, and then go to page 21 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes, look at the right hand side image, the posterior view of the right leg, and see how it has 2 origins. Next question, very simple, very simple. It's basically what group of muscles make up the hamstrings? what group of muscles make up the hamstrings, I would refer you to page 18 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes. It's in the study tip section and you will see it. Page 18 of Muscular System Supplemental Notes. And you will see the group of muscles that make up the hamstring. Also, you can go to page 16 of Muscular System Lecture Notes, Table 8.14, and you will see the muscles that make up hamstring. Next question is basically asking about muscles of the thoracic region. Muscles of the thoracic region, about the ribs. What is the muscles that is in between the ribs? Go to page 5 of Muscular System Lecture Notes, section 8.4 and figure 8.4 as well. So page 5 of Muscular System Lecture Notes, and look at the figure and you'll and see what muscle is the space between the ribs, makes up the space between the ribs. Page 5 of the Muscular System Lecture Notes. Next question basically asks about the muscles that extends and flexes the knee. Very straightforward. Page 16 of Muscular System Lecture Notes. So page 16 of Muscular System Lecture Notes, table 8.14. Table 8.14. Write down the muscles that extends the knee and write down the muscles that flexes the knee. You'll see a question about that. It's just identification. Very few of the questions are anatomy questions. I have tried to put as many physiology questions as I can, but again, because it's anatomy and physiology, I try to ask all the anatomy questions in the lab section. However, there are some anatomy questions in the lecture exam as well. Next question that I have asked is a basic question about how muscle names are derived, how muscles are named. And that would be the first page of Muscular System Lecture Notes. Look at table 8.1 and read about the shapes, how the shapes are named, how the origins are named, how the locations are named. So if I give you an example and say what is this based on, or what information is contained in the muscle name blank, you would be able to identify that by referring to table 8.1 on page 1 of Muscular System Lecture Notes. That ends the muscular system questions. Now that was the 10 questions from the muscular system. Next section is the skeletal system. And the first question on the skeletal system, very straightforward. I want you to know the skull bones, the bones in the skull. And look at table 6.1, which is on page 3 of a skeletal system lecture notes. Page 3 of a skeletal system lecture notes, table 6.1, the bones that make up the skull. Next questions is basically asking about the difference between bone tissue and other connective tissue. What is so special about bone tissue and what makes it stand out as compared to connective tissue? You can read about that. I would refer you to page 4 of a skeletal system supplemental notes and page 1 of a skeletal system lecture notes. Objective A, where it talks about mineral storage. That's a big hint that I'm giving you right now. Page 1 of a skeletal system lecture notes. Objective A, where it talks about mineral storage. Next question is about the sphenoid bone. Sphenoid bone. Very straightforward question. I would refer you to page 18 of a skeletal system supplemental notes. Read that whole page about a sphenoid bone. And also I would refer you to page 12 of a skeletal system lecture notes, section 6.19, and read about the sphenoid bone. It's a pretty easy question if you read those two sections that I told you about. Next one is basically a comparison between male and female pelvis. And where you can find information on that is on page 22 of a skeletal system lecture notes, table 6.4. So page 22 of a skeletal system lecture notes, there is a table that compares male and female pelvis, and that's table 6.4 on page 22 of a skeletal system lecture notes. Next question is about the structure of the long bones. Very important, very basic question about the structure of long bone. I would refer you to page 6 of a skeletal system lecture notes, objective F. Next one is about hyaline cartilage. It's about hyaline cartilage. I would refer you to page 50 of a skeletal system supplemental notes. Next question is about the structure of the humerus. I would refer you to page 19 of a skeletal system lecture notes, section 6.33. Next question is, I want you to be familiar with carpal bones. When we talk about carpal bones, when we say carpal bones, they are basically bones of the wrist. Bones of the wrist are also called carpal bones. I want you to be familiar with those set of bones. Where you can find that is page 40. Page 40 of a skeletal system supplemental notes. Now we are moving to the nervous system. As far as nervous system, there are 30 questions in this section, and most of the questions are physiology questions. So I want you to be familiar with the nerve impulse overview. Nerve impulse overview. And you can look over that on page 10 of Nervous System 1 supplemental notes. Nervous System 1 supplemental notes, page 10. I want you to be familiar with the nerve impulses. Next one is also about impulse conduction. I would refer you to page 14 of Nervous System 1 supplemental notes. It's going to be the first part where it talks about saltatory and continuous conduction. So read that part. Again, that's page 14 of Nervous System 1 supplemental notes. And also page 8 of Nervous System Part 1 lecture notes, section 9.13, where it talks about impulse conduction and saltatory continuous conduction. Read about that. It's very important. Basically, which one is faster, which one is myelinated, which one is unmyelinated, which one is continuous. Okay. Next question is, I want you to know what the synapse is and what a synaptic cleft is. I would refer you to page 8 of Nervous System Part 1, Lecture Notes, Objective F, and also page 16 of Nervous System Part 1, Supplemental Notes. Read it and look at the definition or explanation of what a synapse is and what a synaptic cleft is. Next question is basically the steps in conducting a nerve impulse. Sorry, my screen went dark for a second there. Okay, we were talking about the next question, which is the steps in conducting a nerve impulse. As I said, there are, I think, 2 or 3 questions on this, where we are talking about the resting state, resting potential. Remember, the resting state is where the cell is in the resting state and is basically polarized. Remember that. When we are talking about a nerve cell, when we say a nerve cell is in resting state, that cell is polarized. Also, as we are talking about the steps, there is a depolarization step and then a repolarization step. Read about them. The best source that I would refer you to, which is very simple, short, and easy to understand, because this can be a very difficult subject, especially when you are teaching it to yourself and we are not in a classroom setting for me to explain it to you. So I would refer you to page 10 of Nervous System Part 1 Supplemental Notes and read through the depolarization stage, the resting potential stage, and repolarization stage, and understand the fact that inside the cell, when is it positive, outside the cell, when is it negative, the ions that are inside the cell, which ions are outside of the cell, sodium and potassium, and that's what the question is about. So page 10 of Nervous System Part 1 Supplemental Notes, the whole page, it has the 3 steps there. Next question is about the general types of neurons. It's a simple question. We are talking about locations of unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar neurons, where you can find them. Go to page 4 of Nervous System Part 1 Supplemental Notes. Next question is basically I'm asking you to describe the cerebrum. The cerebrum, page 2 of Nervous System Part 2 Lecture Notes. Objective C and section 10.4 talks about the cerebrum. Again, the question is gonna ask you which one of the following correctly describes the cerebrum. And if you go to page 2, second page of Nervous System Part 2 Lecture Notes, go down to Objective C, read Objective C, and also read section 10.4. You should be able to answer the question. Next question is about function of basically different brain structures, which is very simple. It's in a table, and since it's an open book exam, you can easily answer this question. Go to page 2 of Nervous System Part 2, Lecture Notes, Table 10.1, and look at the different brain structures and write down basically the function of each brain structure. That's what the question is going to be about. I'm going to pick a structure, or I'm going to explain a function of a structure and ask you which structure am I describing. And you can find that on table 10.1 on page 2 of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes. Next question is asking about blood-brain barrier, the importance of blood-brain barrier. For that question, please go to page 11 of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes and read Objective J. Read Objective J, page 11 of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes. Next question is about gray and white matter. And for that question, I would refer you to the first page of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes. I want you to see section 10.1 and read about what gray matter is and what is white matter. And that should be enough explanation on section 10.1 of page 1 of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes. I want you to know the primary motor area of cerebrum. What is the primary motor area of cerebrum? You can find the answer to this question on page 4 of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes, section 10.7. Section 10.7, page 4 of Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes. It talks about what is the primary motor area of the cerebrum. And next, I want you to know the distribution of the vagus nerve. Where is vagus nerve mainly distributed to? For that, I would refer you to page 5 of Nervous System, page 5 of Nervous System Part 3, lecture notes, section 11.9. So page 5 of Nervous System Part 3, lecture notes, section 11.9. When I say Part 1 lecture notes, you understand the week where we covered Part 1 of Nervous System. So when I say Part 1 lecture notes, that's what I mean. All the lecture notes or the supplemental notes that are cover Nervous System Part 1, and then Nervous System Part 2 lecture notes, and then Nervous System Part 3 lecture notes. So in this case, open up the document that's named Nervous System Part 3 lecture notes, go to page 5 and then section 11.9, and where it talks about the distribution of the vagus nerve. Read that paragraph and learn it, study it. There's a question directly from that paragraph actually. I want you to know the types of cranial nerves. Types of cranial nerves. I want you to know which ones are sensory, which ones are motor, and which ones are mixed. Again, this is an open book exam, so you don't have to memorize it. It's simply a table that you would have to refer to for this question. So because the exam is timed, I would tell you to maybe copy down this table or print down this table and have it in front of you, so when I ask you the question, you can refer back to this table and answer the question immediately. For this question, you have to go to page 3 of Nervous System Part 3 Lecture Notes, Table 11.1. So open up Nervous System Part 3 Lecture Notes, go to page 3 and look at Table 11.1, or save Table 11.1, because I'm going to give you a cranial nerve and ask you if it's mixed, if it's motor, or if it's sensory. Next question is basically comparison of sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. Best table and best explanation that I found for this is actually the last page of, which is page 13, the last page of Nervous System Part 3 Lecture Notes, Table 11.5. I would as well print out that table or save that table because it compares the sympathetic activity versus the parasympathetic. Always remember, sympathetic is fight or flight, so your heart rate would increase. And parasympathetic is basically rest and digest. So digestive system would be activated during parasympathetic. So when you're in the jungle and a bear attacks you, your sympathetic system is going to get activated, not your parasympathetic, because there is no time for you to go to the bathroom. You don't want the parasympathetic to be activated. You want to have time to run. So you would start breathe faster, your heart rate would go up, and you'll be able to run faster. That's basically what the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic system is. But again, go to page 13 of Nervous System, Part 3, Lecture Notes, look at Table 11.5. Next question is comparison of autonomic and somatic nervous system. Comparison of autonomic and somatic nervous system. I would refer you to basically it's going to ask you which tissues are controlled by which ones. The tissues that are under voluntary control, are they controlled by the autonomic nervous system, or are they controlled by somatic nervous system? Well, it's in the name. If I'm saying the tissues that are under voluntary control, definitely not going to be part of autonomic nervous system. It's probably going to be part of somatic nervous system. So for that, I would refer you to page 10 of Nervous System Part 3 Lecture Notes, Table 11.2. I want you to be familiar with differences between somatic and autonomic reflexes. Somatic and autonomic reflexes. So autonomic reflexes are